All right, hello. So I'm making this tutorial about UI Toolkit and how to make dynamic UI through prefabs. So one of the advantages of the old Unity UI system was you could just treat everything like a game object and make prefabs out of things. So if you wanted to make a list of players or something like that, it was pretty easy to do that. Now with UI Toolkit and UI documents, there is a way to do it, but it isn't very clearly documented from anything I could find. So this is just how to do that. So you can see here I've got my UI document. It's basically just a container and a player display. So this is what we're going to want to make a prefab out of. So you see if I can duplicate that, it populates down here and all that. And that's all good. So I'll delete all those. And when you first make your prefab, you just want to come to the root of your prefab, or what you want to make into a prefab. They're called templates, and you just hit this create template. Now I've already done that, so I'm not going to do that. And then you can save it anywhere you want in your project. A little window will pop up. So that is done. So I named everything here of player info, player name label, and I just set the colors of this in my code. You Depending on what you're trying to do, you might not need to do that. So I've done all that already, and I saved that into a resources folder in my UI folder. It doesn't matter if you have it in a UI folder or anything like that, but you need to have it in the resources because we need to load this visual tree asset at runtime. So I will open up my Battle UI controller, and if you've gotten this far, I assume you already know about UI documents and panel settings and stuff like that. So I just have my controller on that Battle UI object. And that's important because I say get component of the UI document. So this is a lot of code here, but you don't need to worry about very much of that. Let's minimize the stuff that isn't relevant at this moment. Okay, so here I just create an instance. You don't need to worry about that. So I have this player prefab asset, which is a visual tree asset that I hold reference to. So that's important because we need to have the visual tree asset, not just the visual element that is within it. Because if you try to add that, you can add it one time and then never again. So when we get that, I have this await or this async function of get player prefab. So all I do there is I load from resources that player display and wait while it's null. You can make this into a coroutine, but I really like async functions. And then I just return the player display asset that I got. So once that's populated, so it calls awake and then on enable. So on enable, we get the root. So we go to our UI document and get the root visual element, get our player display container, and this is going to serve as the parent of our prefabs, so to speak. So we get the root queue for the visual element player displays container. So that was that container that I showed in the UI builder. And then the local player element. This is just because I have that one still in there, and I use it for the local player. But we don't really need to worry about this. So ignore that. Okay, so that's all we really need to do to get set up. Just this, getting the player prefab and getting the root and the player display container. So on update I have it, but you could handle this on any event or, when a player joins the game or something like that, or for whatever happens. So if I input.getKeyDown keycode A, I'll add a player, and this is taking in a player name and a player class. So if we look at that add player method, we want to get the visual element that is within the player prefab asset. So remember, this is the visual tree asset, so the UXML that is in our resources folder. And we clone the tree. You can't do it unless you clone the tree. And we want to query for our root. So if you have a different root, like if the root is a button or something like that, you'll queue for the root and call it by the name, and then we'll get that. So then I just set the text, so new player, and query for a label of player name label, and we set that to the player name, which we're passing in as an argument. So that's just going to be a random int from 0 to 10. And then I just have this function to set the player color, which I will show you just so you can see how to set that kind of stuff. And then a player display container, we add player display container.add that new player visual element. And that will add it as a child. So just for full coverage here, we're going to show you set player color. So I pass in a reference to the player display element, visual element, and a color. So if you have borders, you have to call bottom, left, top, and right unless you're doing something funky with the borders. And then you want to access this style field. So that style object that's in the visual element. So you can set it to this, and I just have some alpha values going in. And then I queue for the label and set the color to the color I'm passing in. And then again with the borders and the background colors. So not too complicated. But so now I will just go ahead and play. And when I press the A, you can see that my guy here changed color. And if I just add another one, kaboom. And we're adding a bunch of different colors. So that is it. I just wanted to share this for people who don't know, because I didn't know, and now you know.